is Ashley. I am stopping in here to make that video I talked about. Please don't mind my mom bun, pajamas, and Luna here that I'm carrying. You also might hear the washer in the background throughout this video. But anyway, I am stopping to make that video that I mentioned that I wanted to make about how I became a vegan and what happened, how long it lasted, and kind of have transitioned away from that lifestyle. So bear with me, as this is one of my first videos being like on screen and, you know, trying to get it all out there in the potential time I have. I'm not really sure how long until she wakes up, but I will do my best here. So basically, it was about a few years ago, 2018 was the last year that I was eating a vegan plant-based diet, and I had been doing it for about 2 years at that point. I, like many people, basically found out about the vegan diet through YouTubers, Fully Raw Christina, Amber Lee Sears. I've never had followed Freely the Banana Girl, or a few other people like that. But those are the two main biggest influencers. I think Earthy Andy as well, and some other people that live in Hawaii, eat a vegan diet, that same old story. But basically, I, kept hearing this is the healthiest diet. It can cure diseases. You don't want to get cancer. All the same spiel type of messages that were being put out there by vegan YouTubers. And basically just kept hearing that message. I started getting like anxiety related to diets, wondering if I was going to get diseases from eating meat and how meat was terrible for you. All of those things basically were circling in my head to the point that I made a basically guilt-ridden decision to stop eating meat. And I started eating like vegetarian for must have been just a couple weeks, and then slowly transitioned into veganism. And so that whole thing was really just through that message of putting guilt on people for eating animals, like that just like psychological message of making people feel like they're eating their dog, or could be their dog has the same feelings as their dog, and all of these emotions that get people really worked up to make those decisions. And so I started eating vegan, started making all those elaborate, crazy recipes that take hours to make. I felt pretty decent at first, actually, but that was only over the first few weeks. I felt like a boost of energy, most likely because I was just eating healthier in general, not because it was a vegan diet. Had stopped eating like fast food and, things like that. And so I felt, like I said, that boost of energy, and I was like, wow, this diet must really work. No wonder I feel great. And then over time, slowly, it took a little while to notice, but for some people it takes years. For me, it was not that long because I had like, I guess you could say, blood sugar issues before that. No diabetes or pre-diabetes, but just definitely more sensitive. And so as I started eating more carbs, over the next year to year and a half, I really started to feel like my health decline. It started to get to the point where I would need to eat all the time to keep my blood sugar in check. It would constantly like swing throughout the day. I could feel before and after meals just like crashes. And I was eating very healthy vegan diet as well. I was not eating a bunch of processed food. It was a lot of lentils, nuts, beans, seeds, just things like that, avocados, trying to get my fat in, trying to meet all of what was required a day. And I was very health conscious about it. So for people that can say you did the vegan diet wrong, I included protein, fat, obviously carbs, impossible not to, and didn't eat really any processed food at all. So I did it as correctly as a person could. And I got really skinny. I didn't do the vegan diet long enough to see like the effects facially or things like that. But I did feel internally like horrible. So some of the things that I noticed, like I said, were my blood sugar started getting out of control daily. It would lead me to be super irritable, super grumpy, just all over the place, always thinking about food, always needing to bring food. I didn't necessarily get headaches or things like that, but I started to get um, carb intolerance towards the end, which I'll talk about in a second. But the main issue was I had severe anxiety and severe depressive symptoms that really started on around this time frame and seemed to escalate. Like the anxiety felt out of control. And so basically, it just, I kept trying this or that adjustment to my diet over time, trying to make it work because you had to make it work because you were always doing something wrong that is why this diet was not working for you, not that the diet in itself is an issue. And so I basically got to the point towards the end where carbs were really starting to bother me. Obviously, it was showing up in my blood sugar, like I suggested earlier. But then towards the end, me and my husband were traveling in Eastern Europe and Western Europe as well for a couple month period. And I was eating, everything I could get my hands on between rice and beans and fruits and nuts and seeds and all the things. And it started to get to the point where each meal, obviously, they all have carbs in them for the most part, unless you're just, eating very, very low carb, vegetable fat diet. That my stomach would get bloated from just very basic things like potatoes or, lentils, beans, obviously, but it was just sometimes I'd have a fruit and like a peach, and my stomach would get extremely bloated, very painful. I'd get abdominal pain, just gas, so like distended stomach from every meal because of all the excess fiber and carbohydrates in my diet. And so it started to get really bad to the point that I just was miserable every day. I felt internally miserable. My blood sugar felt all over the place. Mentally, I felt off. Emotionally, I was feeling low. And then physically now just was rough every single day. And I had tried everything I could, followed through with all the ways you can adjust your diet to, you know, you did it wrong kind of things. And so I finally one day was just, we were nearing towards the end of our trip, and this had greatly affected our trip, which I can talk in another video about that because it's a whole nother story on its own. And I feel like there's other people out there that can definitely identify with how this showed up for me in situations with stress and how terribly I felt I handled those situations because of how I felt from a vegan diet. And so we were nearing towards the end of our trip, and I was like, wow, this has been such a stressful trip for me. And I feel that it's abnormal. Like I feel depleted inside. Like you could say my tank was empty, and any stressor that came along, I felt like I could not handle it with where I was coming from physically and how I was nourishing my body, which I was not. So then I basically just hit like a moment. It hit me as we were leaving, like, wow, this could have been so much more enjoyable. This could have been so much less stressful for me. I could have handled all of this travel and moving about and just the different things I was experiencing so much better if I felt like I was coming from a better place. And so I made the vow when I went home that I was going to eat a burger. And this was like a couple of days before going, just was going to do it. And I did it, and I felt phenomenal. And I do not know how it's possible. I've heard it a lot, but once I was finished with that burger, I felt amazing. Like immediately, I felt the energy inside of me come back from that red meat. And I remember telling my husband, I'm just going to eat meat from here on. I'm never going to do that to myself again. And I did. And, you know, for all the potential vegans that out there could see this, it is true in those moments before you're making that decision. You have all these doubts like, I don't want to eat this animal and I've been doing this for so long and how terrible, and all this guilt. And honestly, I worked through that. I processed it fully and accepted that I was willing, you know, to switch mindsets and how I looked at things, essentially, that I was willing to take that animal's life to further my own and for me to feel better and function better and be a better partner, be a healthier person, show up better in the world because I feel good. And so ever since then, that's where my mindset is at, is that I um, have reverence for animals and what they do to nourish us. But I believe that that's what they're there for. And I'm willing to take that on to myself and know I know what I'm eating essentially now. There's no question, there's no guilt, there's just acceptance. So that was a decision I made that day. And ever since then, I began eating meat and eggs and everything again. And I will tell you that I felt better and saw results immediately. Um, my anxiety slowly went away over like the course of just a couple months of me switching to more of a actual paleo and keto diet in the beginning. And this was necessary because I had such a severe carb intolerance that for a short amount of time, I decided that I wanted to eliminate carbs in the majority of my diet, not in a extremely intense way, not like on the whole other end of the spectrum, but I was eating things like a small amount of white potato, sweet potatoes, other root vegetables mainly, and some other very complex carbohydrates like black rice, things like that, just more sturdy carbs. And if they weren't, just a lot less of them with my meal. And my meal was centering around animal fats, quality, grass-fed, pastured, with really good amounts of fats on them, and vegetables, and a side of, you know, some sort of food type carbohydrate, like whole food type carbohydrate usually. And the results were just phenomenal for me. I gained back weight and filled out, and I'm, you know, still have some extra pounds on me, but I feel so much better. My energy, even through having a baby, is just amazing. What I'm experiencing, I don't feel the stress in any way like I used to. I don't feel the lack of sleep like I used to. Um, one night would just set me back. I mean, I would feel one bad night of sleep the whole day into the night. I'm talking like maybe missing 2 hours of sleep than I was used to. I could not function. That was a stressor for my body, which now I'm getting significantly less than that regularly for months, and I'm fine. So there is a huge difference when you nourish your body with the vitamins, minerals, fats that you need. You have a huge tank of energy from which to draw from. And I like to call it basically like you're sturdier, you're stronger, you're sturdier, and a lot can come at you and it's not going to break you down. So after experiencing what I did, just the drastic change I noticed from over here eating plant-based to adding in quality animal proteins and fats, and just the difference in what I felt, I will never, ever, ever, ever go back to that diet ever. There is just no way anyone could get me back to that at this point. So I just am really sharing my story and really wanting to put it out there because I know there are people out there that are experiencing severe energy issues, severe anxiety, depression, and other mental and emotional things going on that are really related to your cortisol levels in your body, your stressor, your stress hormones that you're able to handle, and that might be activated too much from what you're eating. Your insulin might be having a hard time keeping up with what you're eating. And this affects just mood, energy, focus, everything. And I just know that there are people out there struggling that from this diet, that I want to know that you can feel so much better. You don't have to have anxiety. You don't have to have depression. You don't have to have all these other symptoms that you might feel are chronic when they're not, when they're literally simply just related to what you're doing, what you're eating, your lifestyle, basically adjustable factors. So I just, I don't, I just want to get the message out there as much as possible, because I really suffered internally for so long, just feeling like something was wrong with me. And I felt the most amazing shift after changing my diet. I had never known that I could feel so calm, so balanced, just so collected for days, weeks, months at a time. And another thing just before I get off is that, I've been through some trauma in my life, and this diet heavily triggered like PTSD type symptoms for me. I know that that's not what PTSD comes from, but I believe that so I had so many panic attacks during the time I was eating vegan. And so I felt that my emotions and state of my body was just so all over the place. That was so easy for a panic attack to be triggered in me. And I just want to throw that in there because I literally thought that I was just stuck living with panic attacks forever. And so I tried so many things for that as well. And so I just want to add that in there because that is really eats away at your self-confidence. It really eats away at your ability to feel like you can live your life, and you feel fear a lot because of those types of things happening. So I just want people to know that this is not the way you have to live, and it may not seem related to your diet, but your diet affects pretty much everything. So it's for me, it's not about being skinny anymore or looking a certain way. It's really about how I feel inside, and if that feels good. And that's a standard that I go off of every day, is what makes me feel good, nourished, balanced, level. That that kind of stuff is really where my gauge is at this point. And I don't really wait as long as I'm within a healthy range. Um, I believe personally that I've put on more pounds since being pregnant and after giving birth and things like that through breastfeeding. And I'm happy with my body. I'm happy with being able to grow a human and feed a human and comfort a human, cuddle her. And so, that's what matters, is me feeling good, me being able to take care of her. And that's really it. So I probably left some stuff out of my story. Trying to get things done these days as fast as I can. But if you guys have any thoughts or questions or feedback, please feel free to just leave it under the video. And if I think of anything that was left out, I can always address it at a later date. So that's just a good general gist. And I'll see you guys later. I hope you have a good rest of your day.